Well, hello, hello, hello to all of my oily explorers and oily hackers. It's Teresa Sanderson. Of course, I am your guide to essential oils. And I just wanted to share with you today a little bit of information. It's my 7 strategies for sleepless nights. And because I know a lot of people suffer, right, with just being able to get a good night's sleep. And so this is I think it's pretty important information because sleep is important for all of us. We need it. It's kind of the basis, between sleep and nutrition. It's hard to tell which is more important in our everyday overall wellness. So just want to share with you a little bit of my personal story. This is something I have struggled with myself, and it was actually back in 2011. I shared with you a little bit yesterday that at that time I was diagnosed with major depression, and how my depression, I would actually had a very mild depression for several years, and I just took some medicine for it and everything was fine. But this experience was totally different. At that time, my husband and I had owned and operated our own hospice agency here in Northeast Kansas for several years, about 8 years. And I think the emotional and physical toll of that kind of work was just, kind of overwhelming for my body. So anyway, I landed with major depression, and one of the main problems that I had at that time was just not being able to sleep. Could not sleep well, and almost no matter what I did or what I tried, and so that left me with very little energy the next day, right? And it was also really boring to be awake at night, just wide awake and not able to sleep and staring at the ceiling. Super duper boring. Anybody been there? And of course, while I was not sleeping, what would happen? My mind would start to meander down all different kinds of roads, and I would find myself thinking about things I didn't get done that day. What's one of the big things about major depression? You can't do what you know needs to get done. So I would find myself thinking about, well, here's all the things that I didn't get done today. And then I would think about, man, all of the failures in my life, all of that stuff, just when you're awake that long, just starts coming back. So I would think about the times that I'd failed in my life. And I had a son who moved away a very big, very large distance at that time. And so I would think about how far away he was from me now that he'd moved away, and also how ashamed I was of our business failure because our hospice did around that same time start to fail. And so I thought about all of these things in the middle of the night as I was awake, and so many times these thoughts would move me to tears, and I would try to cry silently so that I wouldn't wake my husband Greg. Hey Julie, thank you for joining me. Other times they just kept me awake, and I tried not to toss and turn too much so I wouldn't wake up Greg. It was always that struggle. And then there were times that I would just give up trying to sleep at all, and I would tell Greg I'm going downstairs for a little while, and I would either read or watch TV, play some kind of online game, whatever, just to pass the time. And so those, were hard times for sure. And this went on for months, probably more than, a year or more. And all I really wanted to do was to be able to sleep a full night again without a struggle. That's it. I wasn't asking for a lot, I didn't think. But one of the main things I knew about managing my major depression was the importance of a good night's sleep. Okay, this is paramount to just about everything in health, but certainly for anybody who's struggling with major depression or any kind of emotional illness, a good night's sleep is really, really important. So at the same time, my biggest symptom of depression was not being able to sleep. So I knew how important it was. I also knew I couldn't do it. And so as a nurse, this was a constant battle for me in my mind of how in the world do I get this done? And another thing that really worried me and even made me feel very, very guilty was the idea that I was keeping Greg awake at night. I mean, he was still working. I couldn't work. And so the idea that he couldn't sleep and that it was because of me causing him to lose sleep, that just made me feel terrible. I felt terrible about that. And depression itself as an illness brings on this incredible sense of guilt, and it is amplified probably 1,000 times than what we might feel normally. So anyway, even if it's for things that we can't control, and so this was a big, big burden for me, just feeling like I was keeping him up at night. And so over time, I just grew really, really frustrated and really exhausted with my situation. And I found that even though I really wanted and needed regular sleep, and even though I had medicines to help me sleep, it didn't always work. Anybody been there? I still had many, many sleepless nights, and I've seen so many people over the years in this situation. And it's at that time that I just knew something needed to change. but I had major depression, right? So the amount of energy that I could devote to something like creative brainstorming was going to be really limited, right? I didn't have a lot of energy to do something like that. But still, I was willing to try to think out of the box and try to do some simple problem solving. And so what I did was I came up with a few steps of things that I would try every day. And I'm just going to share those with you now in the hope that they might be helpful to some of you who are listening and who also struggle with getting a good night's sleep. So one of the first things I decided to do, oh, Julie, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I decided to add some activity to my days. We all hear about how good exercise is for us, but let me tell you, I mean, here I was with major depression. I couldn't get anything done, okay? So the idea of adding activity, for me, that was a pretty big deal to look in the face. But I was very, very grateful and comforted by the idea that NAMI, I don't know if you're aware of NAMI, but that is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And they actually recommend that anybody suffering with any kind of a mental illness, depression, or whatever, just increase their activity by 10% a day. Or by 10%, okay? And so that was very comforting to me because going from 0 to 10%, I felt like, that might actually be doable. That might be something pretty easy that I could get done. I also knew that being out in the sun every day would be good for me. That would increase the vitamin D that my body would absorb, and vitamin D is very, very good for the mood. It's very good for emotions. So I started walking outdoors 15 minutes once a day. Okay, just 15 minutes once a day. It wasn't a brisk walk. I just wanted to get out there. And as long as I got out there, thankfully we live in the country, so I really didn't even care what I was wearing. So I just tried to make it as simple as possible. Then I decided too that, since I had some sleeping medicine, I decided I'm going to take it at least 1 hour before I feel like I'm going to be ready to go to bed. And that way it will have time to get fully into my system, and maybe will start helping me start to feel sleepy. That's what it's supposed to do. So I wanted to give it a better chance to work because I didn't always do that in the past. So anyway, that was the next thing I did. And then step number 4, this was probably one of the biggest things, was that I decided I was going to judge myself kindly. Okay? Hear me. I decided to judge myself kindly. If I needed to use my medicine for sleeping at night, I was not going to allow myself to count that as a failure. If I didn't do my walking, I was not going to count that as a failure and say, oh, you lousy thing, you didn't get out and do that today. I wasn't going to allow myself to self-talk that way. I just had to recognize at that point that I was somebody struggling with major depression. It is a true illness, and I had to come to terms with that and realize that I needed to be kind to myself. So that was the next thing. I wasn't going to, beat myself up for things that I didn't do. The next thing I did, step number 5 that I took, was I started drinking some chamomile tea. Chamomile tea is very relaxing, and so I started drinking a cup or 2 of that at nighttime just to try and help me relax. And even I think Celestial Seasonings has some stuff out there called Sleepy Time Tea, and there's many other blends. So something like that I thought I would just incorporate, just to have it in my toolkit if I needed it. And I did find it to be very relaxing, so that was really good. And then lastly, or not lastly, second to last, I decided that I was going to have a couple of backup plans so that if I tried everything, I did the activity, I did the walking, I was out in the sun, I drank the tea, I took my medicine, and I'm still awake at night, what could I do? And so I decided one of the things that I would do is download some audiobooks onto my iPod. And I had a little set of earbuds, and so if I found myself awake in the middle of the night, I started listening to some audiobooks so that my mind could not race. I could concentrate on the story and almost feel kind of productive. Not really productive, but you know what I mean? I would just get lost in the story, and so it wasn't as bad as just sitting there staring at the ceiling, okay, and not being able to sleep. And so it was very calming to my mind, and it gave me a sense of purpose, and I got to tell you, I got a lot of reading in over that time. So sometimes I don't know what God's up to, right? We can't know what He's up to, but I wanted to give myself a little escape hatch, and so those audiobooks were very helpful. The next thing I learned to do was, and this is the last one, this is step number 7, it's just another part of my backup plan. If I couldn't sleep, I learned to crochet some very, very simple dishcloths out of 100% cotton yarn, just kind of a thick, chunky yarn, and I could make one in about 45 minutes. And so if I ended up having to leave the bedroom and go downstairs, I had something that I could do. Hey, Dawn, thanks for joining me. I had something that I could do, and let's face it, when you're counting stitches, your mind really can't wander, and you can't go down those roads of, oh, I'm a failure at this, or oh, I wish I was better at that, or I can't believe I didn't get this done today, right? When you're counting stitches, it gave me a little more purpose, a little more structure, and I can't tell you the beautiful array of dishcloths we had after that experience. So those were some of the things that helped me, but I've got to tell you, I wish I could tell you that the results were just fantastic and that I always got a great night's sleep, but that's just not true. The results were really not very good. Mostly, I was using my backup plan, like I just mentioned, and I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, and I was making a lot of dishcloths, and it was frustrating because I was really tired, I had no energy, and I felt like I was disrupting my entire household. You know, and again, I had those worries of being a burden to my husband and him not being able to get a good night's sleep. So, anyway, I wish I could tell you too that I knew about essential oils at that time that could have helped me sleep, but I didn't. And so the end result was that I spent many, many more sleepless nights. But at the same time, I was also going through, I was seeing a counselor at least weekly. Okay, so I was keeping up with my plan of care too, right? Seeing a psychiatrist as I needed to, and my counselor once a week and maybe sometimes twice a week. And that talk therapy proved to be amazing at helping me let go of thoughts that were holding me hostage to major depression. So I learned to journal. That was another thing that I learned to do. And mostly during that time, I learned about self-care and how to practice it every single day. And so what does that mean? That means I learned to nurture myself every day. I learned to be kind to myself, and I learned to recognize that it's not only okay to fill my cup, it is absolutely necessary, okay? Absolutely necessary. We can't help anybody else if our own cup is empty. So through learning the art of self-care, I'm now able to care for myself in very life-giving ways, right? Very life-giving ways. I don't wait for disaster to happen to me. I don't wait until I feel overwhelmed to take care of myself. I take care of myself now as a part of every single day. Okay, I have boundaries. I know that I can't do it all. And better yet, I don't expect myself to do it all anymore, right? That is a big, big deal. More so, I've even learned to seek out things for my self-care that I can have in my toolkit when I need them. And this is where essential oils come in. So I now have several oils that I know can help me sleep, that can calm my nerves, that can improve my mood, make me feel confident, and so on. And I just wish I'd known about them back then. But you know what? I'm very blessed and very grateful to know about them now. I can't worry about what I didn't know then. I'm forever grateful to have come through that experience. I know what it's like to not be able to sleep, and I know what it's like to rest well. I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful. I also know what it's like to run on empty, and I know what it's like to fill my cup. I choose the latter. I am creating a new book of essential oils cheat sheets for beginners that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks, and there will be a cheat sheet for sleep that's going to be included in that book. So if you want to be notified when the book is released, just download my free essential oil cheat sheet, and you can learn 7 other ways to use essential oils in very simple, practical ways around your home right now, and you'll also be the very first to know when the book comes out. Thank you for tuning in. The link, let me tell you that. It's to get your free essential oil cheat sheet and be on the list to get notified when the book comes out. It's just www.oilyhacks.solutions/EOCS1. And I will post a link so that you have access to that as well. Thank you for tuning in, and have an awesome, amazing day. Bye-bye.